Hello, everyone. Welcome to Nails and Beauty Talk, NFTs, crypto, and Web3. I'm your host, Asia the Bird. To have a very special guest with me today. He's an award-winning poet, artist, and the creator of the FunkyIPuppets. Please welcome IPaintCreatures. Hello, IPC. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone. What's happening, worldwide audience? And Asia Bird, amazing person I've been getting to know. So
Glad to have you. Now, I want to go ahead and get started with this interview by asking about where are you from and tell us about your upbringing.
It all starts basically in California, and I'm like a second generation of Japanese, full-blooded Japanese, and my grandparents, basically I'm second generation, they came from Japan. And then my parents were pretty much raised in California. And then my father was 10th degree black belt in Aikido, and he wanted to basically go meet the founder of the form of Aikido he was studying, and he was passing. And so my mother was pregnant with me, and so she went across the ocean, which is actually a very famous Japanese mythological myth for a baby to cross the ocean in the mother's womb. And then basically I was born in Tokyo, Japan, and then basically within 3 months I was back in California. So I pretty much was raised in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Cool. What got you into art? And if you had to describe it, like also what type of like art were you gravitated to?
Well, art started with a lot of adversity, and basically, first of all, my family, my grandparents and my parents at a very young age were in the Japanese internment camps, and so basically lost all our heritage, and especially when it came to me. And so I didn't know growing up till about 10 years old that my whole family are basically poets for the Royal Court of Japan, and samurais, which practice the warrior arts, which are painting, all the arts, theater, poetry, painting, drawing, and so my father basically got cancer, stomach cancer, when I was 10 years old, and basically it led me into the hospital around 8-9 years old, just in waiting rooms. And so I didn't know what to do with my time, and it kind of took me away from all the friendships and, influence of popular culture, So I was kind of just in my own head. And so I started drawing what I thought back then were monsters, of course, and I didn't have too many references of pop culture. So I was just drawing my own thing. And then, of course, to occupy my time, I just started writing little stories, which back then were poems. And then a year later, my father did demise and pass. And then a year later, my mom was trying to control me because I was a creative individual and with no father, and she had to go to work. So she's constantly putting me in all these programs, and she put me in the Cub Scouts. And the only thing that kept me there was they introduced the theater program. And I was like, whoa, I like this, I like acting, even though I was, deemed as a shy kind of kid, I like, oh, I'll do this. And I landed a role as a strong man. And basically that kind of bonded me and my mom, because she took the time to do my costume, even though she was working all these jobs, catch up for my father. And one day in the mirror, we're looking in the mirror, and I'm raising my left arm and I'm gripping it like this, and I'm the strong man. I'm like, I'm strong. And she's like, wait a minute. And she starts tapping like right here. And she's like, that's not a muscle. And I'm like, yeah, it is. I'm like going like this, and it's big. I mean, it's like a softball, and I'm like going like that. And she's like, I don't think that's a muscle. And I'm just like, 11-year-old kid going, it's a muscle. I mean, and so that week we went to Stanford's Children's Hospital in Palo Alto, and went to one of the best children's physicians, and he recommended an amputation. And he also recommended that if it were cancerous, I will not live past, 13, 14 years old next couple of years. Basically, it's terminal, because it was on the bone, right? It was a bone tumor. And of course, I have my arm, and I'm here today. And basically, to answer your question, basically I healed, and then you know, took me 5 high schools to graduate. And the only
Mhm.
thing that saved my life was the ability to express myself in poetry and illustration.
Wow. Wow. Now I want to get into haikus. Now, what is a haiku and what makes it so unique, apart from other styles of poetry?
Haiku kind of has what I call a little bit of a bad rap, but I'm like, I call myself a haiku superhero. I'm here in the world to show people that, you know, what it can be used for. And it's a really deep question because haiku, uh, just like the term yokai, led me back to my Japanese heritage and allowed the arts to do things that, you know, obviously my parents went into fear and society did all kinds of strange things, right?
Right.
And I for the first time I could, not through the language or any customs or anything, but just through my blood, like, whoa, I get this, like this is what I need and what I do. And so haiku was one of them. And of course it came to me just like most Americans, right, in 5th grade from a teacher that, you know, and I call that, it's kind of original term, IPC term, I call that the schoolyard format. And
Hmm.
so the schoolyard format is 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and 5 syllables. So it's a short poem, right? And the schoolyard format is influenced by where it came from in Japan, right? Which is the 1600s. And
Hmm.
in Japan, there are no syllables, right? There's sound symbols, which are really profound, right? Because they're
Hmm.
counting the breath till death. That's a Japanese tradition. Uh, and so basically haiku, when it comes over English language, and then it's also in, I think, other 100 something languages, and it's worldwide used now. And so I think something happened to it. It changed. It still has the essence, but I think the number one essence it has are 2 things. One, it's a short poem. It's not a haiku, it's a short poem. It's just being able to do what poets do with long poems in a short poem. So have it work in the poem. And the second thing I think comes over from Japan is the thing called the kureji. And the kureji is the cut. And that's present in all the martial arts. So it's very deep in my blood, in my samurai blood, and my father as a martial artist. It's the whole illusion of, you know, allowing someone's anger or fear or hate
Hmm.
destroy them. And that's what the art, I don't know if you know much about Aikido, but Aikido, that's the whole martial art. It's not your energy, it's the opponent's energy. You use all their energy and you're just a conduit to let them destroy themselves.
Wow, that's very interesting. Now, in terms of haikus and your love of art, like how would you describe that connection between haikus and, your artwork?
Well, first of all, you know, because of the story I told you, right, I was kind of shut down. You know, I was very artistic. You give me a microphone, like you put me in an MC battle, or you give me a poetry slam stage, or you give me a storytelling type
Mhm.
environment where people are listening, and I'll talk for 10,000 days, you know, but the other side of me was shut down, like didn't really know who I was. And you know, and I went to the streets right after my father died, so you know, you loose tongue, right? You know, it's going to
Mhm.
get you in trouble. So I think haiku, even though it wasn't really on the surface back then, it was still there, because like when I found it in 5th grade, I was like, okay, that's a Japanese form and everything, but there's something there, like I I get it, you know, like whatever it is. And so I think it first gave me the connection to art. It gave me was the foundation of everything. Like everything I do, from filmmaking to animated storytelling to performance poetry to even competing in haiku and competing in poetry slam, has always started with the word, right? The first the imagination and then the word. And where haiku comes in, it's the perfect poem. You know, like poetry is technology. That's what people have forgot about. It's technology. Like it does what your iPhone does, or your cell phone, or your, you know, thing. It carries information. It allows you to communicate, allows you to process information, right? And so I think haiku in these modern times, it's the most prevalent form, and it's being used. It's just not becoming called haiku. It's, I think I strongly feel that about poetry. poetry, you can call it hip hop, or you can call it a feature film, or you can call it comedy, you know, but a lot of epic commedia pieces, films, rock and roll, hip hop, all that, it's because of the poetry in it. Even if, and it's always really short, right? They only use a little bit of the poetry, right?
Yeah, that's really, really cool. Now I want to get into your time at Lucasfilm. So how did that all get started with you working at Lucasfilms, especially with George Lucas?
Well, that's a crazy story, but it definitely connects to the stories I just told, right? So basically grew up in the Bay Area and basically got into a lot of street life, you know, but the arts were always central. So they always kept pulling me back out of it. So I didn't get too deep in, you know, some of the really dark areas of, you know, street life. And basically, you know, got really dark on one level. And I had a friend, and I hung around a lot of my older siblings' friends because my father died. And so this person moved up from the Bay Area and came up to Northern California, where I'm at now in Chico. And it's at the base of the Sierra Nevada mountains, about an hour from above Sacramento. It dragged me up here, and basically what happened is I basically, you know, kind of just went into kind of like outlaw kind of living, rural living, where people, you know, they just kind of live together and they don't really work 9 to 5s because there's not a lot of those industries up here, and they just hang out. And then it's a college town, so you know, it has tons of fresh culture. Like the arts are amazing in this town. That's why I think I've stayed here all these years. I can't figure out any other reason. And so basically I wasn't going to college because 5 high schools graduate. So I was, you know, I've been really seriously doing creative writing, poetry, fiction, and painting and drawing like every day, and going past graffiti, going more into fine art, and you know, really grounding. And then I discovered story art and started doing that like crazy. And first working with people I'd meet, oh, you write stories, and I'd take one of their stories and I'd take a ballpoint pen and I'd sit there and I'd draw the whole story for them. And then I found out like they didn't like the hustle. A lot of people don't like the hustle. Like I want to, like, I hear people get paid for this, dude. You know, I don't have a job. I'm not going to college. But then got fooled by that friend who got me up to Chico, and they kind of wrote a Pell Grant back in the day. And like, I didn't know what that was, but he's like, and he did it behind my back. I think he did it with my mom or something. And like, and then in the fall they came and they were like, say, you're going to California State University, Chico. And I'm like, I'm not going. And then they're like, here's free money. And I'm like, well, but I got to pay that back. And they're like, no, you don't got to pay that back. I'm like, what? So I ventured in there, and of course I went into the school, and I've been practicing the arts, you know, most of my life at that point. So, you know, my friend recommended, you know, take art, and I'm like, I don't want to take no art. I want to do something, you know, where you can use my art, because I learned a lot of that on the streets. Like this band needs my posters, you know. So like, and so I basically did a degree there, but during the degree there I didn't focus at all. I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just getting the money. At the time. And then I landed with a roommate who was very technical, and at this point I had not messed with computers. I was kind of like this kind of hippie guy, like, you know, street hip hop kid who was like, you know, I don't want to mess with the machine. That's the machine, you know. And he, you know, he lived with me, so I had, you know, there were things at school I had to do, papers and stuff, and so he helped, you know, here's a word processor, let's print it. I'm like, whoa, that's like magic, you know, but I'm not doing it, you know. And he slowly went there. He would show me little stuff like, you like pen and ink, let me show you vector graphics. And like I'd look at it and be like, whoa. And he'd show me like why the advantage, and I'd be like, I don't want to do it. But he did some project with me, and then he was the stickler. One night we I think we were playing beer pong or something, and we got kind of drunk late in the night, and he looked at me and he said, dude, I've been wanting to do this. And he started working at the career center on campus, and he's like, I've been wanting to do this forever. He's like, dude, you need to go work in the industry, dude. You're gonna like warp some people with what you do, you know, and you got the skills even without the school, and we can focus the school. And I was just not having it. So we had some like bet or something. And at the end of the night, he got me and he's like, well, just give it a shot, you know, at least give me the information. I'll do it. I'm like, well, what are you gonna do? He's like, I'm going to go to the Career Center and I'm going to go through all these companies. What I want you to do right now is I'm going to make a list of companies. I know you don't like this corporate or whatever you're tripping on, but I want you to at least say the companies that might have influenced you a little bit. You know, like creative companies, not like, you know, Pepsi or whatever, like, you know, he's like,
Right.
and so I just kind of ramble off the top of my head. And I've never really been a fan of like the actual, you know, like the actual art. Like I'm always been that street kid of like, they're making money at this. I need to go like figure out how this guy lives more than his Mickey Mouse he drew. And so wrote down all the companies, and then basically he went forward. He was all organized, and he put together a portfolio of mine and a resume, and he sent it to Disney World, all these Broaderbund, all these game companies, all these ones that I wrote down. And basically the long story short is that they all came back and they wanted me at some level. Some of them were interns, some of them were, you know, possibility this job. We want you to just come out here and work for a few months and see what they do, because they're real fascinated. Because one thing he did with my resume is not only do the arts, he did the whole thing. And at that point, I had started working with youth because I wanted to give back. So I was working in incarcerated youth and disadvantaged youth. And then a new category I kind of discovered on myself, which were kids that were well off, but their parents didn't see that they did poetry, or, you know, they did art, or they had something phenomenal in them. And so basically the joke was they all came back, but Lucasfilm didn't come back. And so I was like, I'm not going anywhere. It's summertime. I'm going swimming and bike riding. I'm going to have a good time in Chico. And I'm not, it was a good thing you did. And I'll consider it in the future, you know? And he was like, but Lucasfilm hasn't responded. I go, that's why I'm not doing it, because that's the one I wanted. Remember, look at the list. It's at number 1. And I said, because I love Marin County and I grew up in the Bay, and I'm like, I'm going there, you know? And so a couple of weeks went by, or I think almost a month went by, and they corresponded, but they were just saying, hold on. You know, this guy's resume is really special and we're trying to figure some things out. So he told me that, and I said, well, okay, so here's the deal. If they come through, I'll go for it, you know? That was totally kind of my mind. They're not coming through. And then the story is one day, just kind of, we were kicking around the house, gets really hot in Chico in the summer. And basically the wanted to go up in the hills and go camping, and went up there, drove up there, and I was looking in my back seat, and I didn't bring no tent or clothes or anything because it's hot in the valley. And I'm like, oh, better go back. So I went back to the house, got the tent and everything, and then went back out of the house again, right? And then came back and basically drove around the corner and said, oh, I want to get some drinks or something. So I went back again and went back in the house. And when I went back in the house, my roommate's like, hey, there's a phone call, dude, come in here. And I went in the room, and he hands me his phone, and I go, hello. And it's Dartel Satel Long, who is like George's secretary, and you know, she's in all the books about Star Wars. So I was like, I was like, hello. I'm like, this is not you. And she said, yeah, it is me. And so basically she said, can you be down here at 6:30 in the morning the next morning? So went down there and basically went through a week worth of interviews, and like they almost burned me out. I almost quit. And they're like, they put me up in a hotel, and they're like, in the last, you just have one more interview. And I opened the door, and George was sitting there. And for this street kid, I was like, I didn't know to cry or run, or so I just sat down. And yeah, and he just wanted to talk about the merging of working with kids and art, and my journey of how my art is somewhat, he didn't know I did poetry, right? Because at that point it wasn't on my resume, but he said basically just, he has this project that he wasn't going to do until he met me, till he met someone like me that could do it. And it basically, the first project I work on there was basically the question, how come there's not one of him graduating from every high school? At least in the United States every year, from every either private high school or public. And not necessarily a filmmaker, just someone that, to do something that will shift the planet, like he did.
Wow, that's a very cool story.
I was trying to keep it short. I could tell the story forever.
Yeah.
That altered everything I am,
No, yeah, right, exactly. But what were some of like the takeaways and the lessons you've learned being at Lucasfilms?
Probably that in the world of art and culture, especially on the internet these days, and it's just kind of sad, but I'm also a superhero there, and I'm here as part of my purpose in life, that the storyteller and the poet is at the heart of every creation. And if you want to get good at painting, go hang out with a poet. If you're not a poet yourself, and I got that directly, from some of the luminaries I got to spend time with at Lucasfilm. Basically, the guy who drew the original Yoda.
Wow,
his storytelling, his illustration didn't get to the level where he is now until he met George. And he said his favorite times were not working, was when George said, "Hey man, I'm going to get a sandwich down at this cafe. Can you meet me there?" And George would just have some idea and he'd bring a pencil. He said the poets know what the illustrator and painters are supposed to be drawing.
Yeah. Wow, that's really, really amazing. Now I want to get into this other question. So which happened first? You get into NFTs or starting the FunkyIPuppets?
Kind of coinciding, because I'm one of those artists that all the technicians came after me like years ago, whatever this started, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when the buzz started to at least go to the public. I was streaming on Twitch, and I had a lot of people come in my chat, probably, and then 5 rows that really came at me like hardcore. 2 of them that I know in real life. They said, you got to do this NFT thing. The art you do is like, it's made for this stuff. And I was like, what is it? And they're like, they were all buzzing on just that I'll sell, Yeah. So I think, kind of the same. And then I guess the FunkyIPuppets really sealed it, that's when it came into, and that's where I see a lot of uses of it besides just the sales.
How did you create like the FunkyIPuppets? How did that all get started?
Well, basically, when I was at Lucas, one of the things that I didn't know at the time was a very special privilege is I had free reign to go in George's library. And he is a stickler for documenting everything. I mean, everything, like every little thought that led up to Yoda's creation, he has documented, It's just, that library, I couldn't find enough time in there. And I probably shouldn't say it out here, but it's long past, but I did things I'm not supposed to do, which is kind of like copy some of the stuff. I didn't really like Xerox it and stuff, but I took notes, and I took poetic notes, so I didn't like copy it for verbatim, but I was like, whoa, that's how he got here. Like, I need to just write it down. And one day I was in there, and I kind of had that godlight thing, like had a stack of books, got fumbled a little bit, and then this little piece of paper slid out on the ground, and it had a few words on it. On the bottom, it said Matsu, and I just wrote it down. And I didn't know so I just wrote it down. And then I would think the FunkyIPuppets and the story of Matsu really started to fruition. I think Matsu's always been there, because like when after my father and my disease and all that, into my teenage years, I did run into the older cats that said, hey man, look at Dark Crystal, and look at that. I'm like, what is that? And then once again, I was that street kid going, they made money doing that. they're drawing creatures and they're making money. They're drawing these little monsters and they're getting paid. I'm like, who is that guy? I don't even care about the film, you know, who made it? Can I get some information on that dude? And so I think it basically, I found the story of Matsu, and I didn't take it that seriously because I work at Lucasfilm. I'm like, I'm not George. I'll never be that. I mean, I can't. I'm crazy, but I don't know if I'm that crazy. You know, I don't. But I would always look at Tales of Narnia and Lord of the Rings and the Pixar Toy Story, all the stuff. And I was always that street kid. I liked the movie and I thought it was cool, but I was like, those dudes get together and make money. I do that kind of. I mean, not like they do, but I do that. So like, I just wanted to figure it out. And so I always worked on Matsu. I always like, you know, and then I started to figure out a pattern at one point. This was after I left Lucas, where if I just started to paint and I started to just free write, if it wasn't about like life, you know, like more literal, it was Matsu. I just keep writing. I draw this little character. I'd be like, what is that? And then I'd be like in line waiting at the dentist, and I'd bring out my sketchbook, and then I'd just write a little haiku or a bunch of poems right next to it describing this little thing. And so I started doing it. And so basically what happened is, you know, I work at Lucas, and then I went back there, right? Because I had a girlfriend at one point and we moved in together, and I was like, oh, this man, you know, my father failed, but I don't know, I'm gonna go for this, I guess, I don't know. And you know, and she suggested, you know, why don't you give them a call up and see. She's like, I'll move them in. I'm like, okay. So I went down there with all my friends and casually went there and went back and got kind of a shock experience, because I basically went for a job. And it was pretty cool, but it was like art directing and managing. It wasn't hands-on like what I did before, and it wasn't working with George, and it wasn't working at the ranch. It was working with Industrial Light Magic, and, you know, real world deadlines and real world, like, tell people what to do. And I think I was ready, but it, you know, it was really shiny money, and I was like that. And I pretty much went through a series of interviews and I almost took it. And then my boss, who wasn't Darlene, saw me walking around Skywalker Ranch, and she's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm back visiting, but I'm also like inquiring to get at work. And she kind of looked at me kind of strange, and I was like, what? She's like, you have some time this afternoon, I'd love to get caught up. And I'm like, okay. So I basically had a little snack with her, and then at one point she got that face again, and I'm like, what's up? Stop looking at me like that. And then she kind of just pulled everything aside. She said, this is off the table, but I just really want to speak to you heart to heart. And I was like, what? And long story short, she basically told me I'm a storyteller, and she said, I can't work here anymore. That's what George does. They don't have any other storytellers here. You know, and I was like in shock, and I was like worried, you know, to bills. I'm like, I need a job. This isn't about that. And she's like, you know, and she gave me all kinds of suggestions. Start doing what George did, you know, go apprentice, find things. You got skills, you know, make the little money. Don't commit to anything. Just do something. And then if you have a story, and I said, I do have one. She's like, and I know what you can do with it. You not only can write it, you can draw it and paint it and animate it. And you can do things a lot of people can't do. And she's like, I need you to do that. And I just kind of walk away. But then she's like, this is off the table. You know, if you need to take the job, take it. But I just wanted to tell you that. And so I went home and I told my girlfriend that, and she was like, you're not taking that job. And I'm like, what, am I going to go do this? And I was like, so basically fast forward, some years went by right before the pandemic, some stretch before, not like exactly right before, my mother basically started to decline because she was in internment camps and she got scoliosis. So she's getting the age where her spine was starting to twist and bend. And so I located her, and she had been going through adversity, and she was in Southern California. And basically
Mhm.
my older brother and sister have kind of abandoned her too. So I kind of just like went down and hung out with her for a while, and then basically decided to move her up to Northern California and get her own place, but then I'd be close. And, you know, she's one of my best friends. And so
Mhm.
basically basically didn't live with her at first, but came up here and we spent a lot of time and we caught up because there were a lot of gaps in years because after my
Mhm.
father died. And so then basically, what that did is my career after that gap in between Lucasfilm is when I really went into the performance poetry. And so I got it to a point where I was making really good money, but I had to tour. So I had to tour at least 3 or 4 months out of the year. And I was, you know, getting paid really well to do a lot of universities and workshops, and I did a lot of the haiku, and then I hooked in with a lot of social organizations. So I started doing a lot of those, and they paid pretty well, but I could double up the gigs. So I was doing that. And when I was out there, I was in a lot of hotel time because I'm like a rock star or whatever, right? So I'm in the
Mhm.
hotel and I started watching YouTube and I started seeing all these guys get funded for their stories, like doing Kickstarter. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. This guy got $500,000 in a week, and I read his story and I was kind of judgmental. I'm like, this is weak. This guy don't know what he's doing, man. I know what I'm doing here. And then I found myself fooling myself. And so basically what happened is I came home, and then mother started to decline. So I had to move in with her. And then I was trying to juggling, and then I was trying to learn how to take care of her, which was not really good, you know. And then so just kept on following that YouTube dream, right? Because I could take care of her and keep following my cell phone around, right? And
Mhm.
then one time on YouTube, I watching this guy's channel, and he's like, you can catch me live on Twitch. I'm like, live? The watercolors. I'm like, live? What do you mean on Twitch? And then he's like, and then I looked down at the thing and it was right then, you know, like, because it was a YouTube description, and I clicked on it and I had to sign up for Twitch, and I'm like, I don't even know what this is, right? And it basically came up and said username. And I was like, and I just went, I paint creatures
Mhm.
because I had been kind of talking like that. It hadn't become a name yet, but I've been telling a lot of my friends in the industry, I'm not doing portraits. I'm not doing, you know, client work anymore. I'm not doing landscapes. I'm not doing advertising. I paint creatures. That's where I'm going. That's what I'm gonna do. I don't know why, but
Right.
that's what I'm doing. So I typed that in, and then I went into his stream, and he was sitting there watercoloring, and there was all these people in this chat, and I'm like, this is weird, man. I'm a performance person. This is great, man. How do I get in on this? And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, and then I'm talking to some of the other people. I'm like, how do you know how many people are in here? And they're like, look at the stat. And I'm like, I look at there and I think there's like 60 people. I'm like, 60 people? This dude is just painting. He's not even telling stories. I'm like, okay, relax, calm down. Okay. And then I'm in there, and then all of a sudden, boom, all these alarms, all this stuff goes off. And I didn't know what a raid is. I don't know if you know about Twitch, right? A raid. Do you know what a raid is?
I do
Okay,
not.
so after you finish your stream, like Clubhouse one day might have this, right? After you finish your room, you can raid another room and you can drag all your audience in there with you. And
Wow.
so this thing went nuts, and I'm like sitting in the chat going, what is going on? And the chat's going nuts. And I'm like, I looked at the status bar and it says 1,500 people now. And I'm just, my mouth is dropped. I'm like, this guy painting in watercolor. What is going on? A rock show. And then I talked to the people, and they're like, Bob Ross is still one of the biggest Twitch channels, even though he's dead, right? They play all his replays. And
Right.
he rated this guy.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I'm sitting there, and there's all these people in the chat just flying, and he's just doing all this stuff, and then it calmed down, and then I kept going back to Twitch days after that. And, you know, I take care of my mom, and then it was a perfect
Mhm.
medium that I could go in there, still take care of mom, and I was in there, and then my name started doing things to people. I started typing in the chat. They're like, dude, you paint creatures? We want to see. And I didn't have no Instagram then, you know? And so they're all like, set him Instagram. That's probably the fastest way to get. So I started taking all my sketchbooks and just putting it up. And then I started seeing the theme. I'm like, I'm posting Matsu, right? And so then basically, fast forward a little bit, I became really successful on Twitch. The third week in there, I got rated by Bob Ross.
Wow.
I kept 800 of those people in there for 3 hours. I just went nuts. I started being Bob Ross, but I started splashing watercolor on there and go, oh, there's a cloud creature. I started putting a face on it. Crowd was going nuts. I started doing creatures of them. So I started doing this. And so then what happened, to answer your question, is basically at one point, I was like, man, this is a medium. I actually have a channel, because it started monetizing too. At one point, it started paying like half my bills. And I was, and so then I started, I basically went on there and this is where it ties back to, I kept on telling you I was never a fan, right? I was always a fan of the creators. So this is really started kicking in, because I'm like, if Jim Henson was not famous like he got famous, and he had NFTs and Twitch and Clubhouse and YouTube, what would he do? And that every day, that's all that was in my head. Dude, your IPaintCreatures, this art, people love it, because I started doing art fairs. And then of course, when I was out on the road, everyone, even though I was doing poetry, let me see the sketchbook. And I'd even sell some art. I just, by someone on the street, I'm sitting there sketching. Can we see the sketchbook? Or even a lot of my fans afterwards too started saying, I saw you on campus earlier during the day and you were sitting over there sketching. Can we look at the book?
Mm.
And then they gather all their college friends around. And so then basically, I tried the FunkyIPuppets, because I was like, I think the quickest way to tell the story of Matsu right now is hand puppets. Because I can animate, but I come from the big boys, so I understand the level of animation I can do. And animation is not a solo sport. I think it's become a more solo sport that you can do it with 2 or 3 people, but you still need that creative, and it's a challenge to even do it internet wise, right? So then I tried it on Twitch, and Twitch has kind of a weird, majorly different Clubhouse, because everyone's monetized. Right. So the competition is where Clubhouse is kind of getting weird like that right now. Right. Like if I'm in your stream, it's your stream. Don't be like shouting out people, there's a lot of that going on. So basically I met the team there. I was like, I had on what I call my Lucasfilm goggles. Right. I was like,
Right.
I go in a 3D artist stream and I'm like, oh my God, this guy did the thing I was telling you about, you hang out with poets. I'm like, this guy's amazing 3D artist, but he's doing fan art. He doesn't know what to do with his skill. I'm like in the chat holding my hand up. Hello, can you make this creature? And I bet it'll challenge them and they'll have fun, but then the whole kind of economic social lines separate us, right? And so then my mother passed, right, during the pandemic, right? And that was very tragic, but I was still glued to my cell phone, right? One night, dealing with, I didn't see her for the last 6 months because she had to go to rehab home, and then they said she got COVID and all this crazy stuff. So I was pretty much isolated, but same as the beginning of my life, right? I was still drawing, painting, and writing poems, and just kind of trying to make myself happy, with whatever was going on. And I basically got a message from a real close poetry slam friend of mine going, dude, get on Clubhouse. And I looked at it and I was like, first of all, I was like, what is it? The question, right? He's like, it's the new social media, dude, and you're going to kill it on there. And I'm like, dude, I don't need to kill anything. My mom, like, why are you doing this? He's like, first of all, I haven't talked to you in a while, but I've been watching your IPaintCreatures thing go. And like, dude, if anything, just go on there and reserve that name. Like, go and get IPaintCreatures so someone doesn't do that on you. So just do that. And so I went on there and did that, right? And then I didn't know it was beta, right? But I didn't notice that he gave me an invite. So I just kind of went on there and didn't go on it. And then the next day, he texted me again. He's like, I saw you signed up, but dude, come in this room. I'm like, what's a room? And he's explaining the whole thing to me. And then I at that point, I'm like, dude, just straight up, I'm just not in the mood to do this. And audio app, you got to be kidding, dude. We have Zoom and we got, Twitch, like, dude,
right.
with audio. He's like, dude, just trust me. Watch what you do on this. I'm like, okay. So I came in there, he oriented me in there that night, and I was dealing with my mom. So it was really soothing being with people and just kind of interacting with them. And then he brought me in this room, and then he's like, okay, I got a little roadmap for you. I'm like, okay. Okay, so I'm going to close this room, right? And then you're following me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start bopping in all these poetry rooms. So they'll show up in your hallway. And I want you to go in there, and I'm not going to get in your way. I just want you to go in there, raise your hand. And I'm like, what? And he's like, they're open mics. You know what to do next. So I went in there and I raised my hand, and they brought me on stage, and I opened it up and I did a poem, and I did what I love to do most, which is the original form of poetry. Nothing written. I just spit, and I did a tribute to all the poets on the stage. And the journey began. If you know Polka Blue followed me. She was my first follow, and she's become my good friend. So, and she's a FunkyIPuppet. So to get to the FunkyIPuppets, so basically then I got on Clubhouse, and I went in all these amazing rooms, and I went in Artie Fox's Rap is Poetry, and I've become pretty good friends with him. And basically I looked at Rap is Poetry, and I've been looking for movements since the Poetry Slam to see what is the next Poetry Slam for the kids, because the kids have got to the point where I don't do Poetry Slam, you know, it's got a bad taste because it never blew up, you know, right? And so it said Rap is Poetry. So I went in there, and I was like, dude, I agree. Like, dude, this is for the kids. I told them I work with kids all the time, and they don't. I say, what is your favorite music? And I'm like, you like rap? No. What's your favorite artist? Eminem. I'm like, what happened there? You know, so I'm like, and then I spit something for them, and they're like, we like you. I'm like, okay, I need to say rap is poetry, right? And so basically met him, and then Polka Blue and a couple of other rooms that were really established, a lot of people. And so I wasn't ready to do my own room. So I was going in there, and I got to know these people because, you know, I'm a real entrepreneur on that level. And I started talking to them about, man, here, I got this idea. You should, can you imagine this? Can you imagine you open your room and you have a title, and it's like a title of a TV show, and you go in there and all the PTRs are cartoon characters, and it's a cartoon episode. And a couple of them said, you're whack, dude. That's stupid. You know, and Artie said, oh, I think I love that. And then I was like, man, dude, we could bring rap is poetry to everyone like this. And then he's like, I'm a cartoon fan. I love anime. I'm like, whoa. So we started doing that. And that's when I opened Club Creatures. And Club Creatures and a lot of the clubs and everything is actually in the story of Matsu. So it's kind of prophetic, right? I wrote a lot of stuff. And even people I met that are FunkyIPuppets, I wrote about them in poetry, their character and kind of who they were. So basically I went in there and we did the Rap is Poetry. I called it the Audio Theater Cartoon Troupe. You know, that's haiku again too. I know how to name things, right? I was just like, man, this is world history right here. No one's ever done this. This is weird. Like, okay, let's do this. And he's not to downplay him, but he's not the greatest organizer, or he didn't have the passion I had or whatever. But we grouped together like amazing, right? Because it was Rap is Poetry. So we had the R&B singers, we had the soul singers, we had the rappers, the DJs, you know, it was really where the FunkyIPuppets, you know, where the ultimate goal is. And we're starting to go there more and more, that we were limited by the technology, right? But so basically one day I kept doing these rooms and Rap is Poetry rehearsals, auditions. Let's get this going, trying to get the writing team together because I wanted them to write too. And then basically one day just kind of got fed up with they didn't show up and everyone's late and everything, and just found myself just titling the room FunkyIPuppet audition. And I just did it randomly in one day, had no thought to it. And over 3 days, 50 people showed up.
Wow.
And at the end of the 50 people, there's like 46 of them that I just signed up. And it got so crazy, and it's internet. So I'm a creative person. So I just can't do spreadsheets, you know, in my head. And so like at one point I was overloaded. I was just looking down at the screen going, who's that person? And what, and they're going, okay, so I got casted. What role am I? I'm like, what did you do? Did you sing? I forget even what you sounded like. And so one day I got an epiphany late at night and I just said, dude, just do it like you've always done it. Do it like the whole Lucasfilm journey, everything. just close your eyes and just point at the page. And that's what I did. And the magic started happening.
Wow, that's really, really cool. Because I know you have members like Vessi and Quincy.
Yeah.
You have Tamara. And it's really, really cool. Like they had all these unique talents, especially Vessi. Vessi talked about the FunkyIPuppets. And I love the hat that you created for it. I thought that was really, really cool. I love like the different monsters and the different types of characters.
Creatures.
Yeah, different creatures. Like they're very, very cool. And the creatures are so unique.
Because that's something I learned at Lucas, right? Like they take that very seriously. Like monsters are creatures, right? But they're creatures that got hurt and are not willing to heal themselves, so they hurt you. So in storytelling, it's very important pivot, especially in Matsu. It's very important because that's also been a lot of my in the last 3 months, a lot of my school programs directly with kindergartners and first graders. And they love it to really teach them this is a monster and this is a creature. And there are roles for monsters if you want them, but you know, really got close to them about those days that they cry and life sucks, you know, and you don't want the monsters around.
Oh, right.
I have a children's book on Amazon that's all about don't get mad at the monster.
Right.
Like at least, you know, have some compassion for the monster.
Right. Right, exactly. Now
that's where Matsu has a twist, right? Matsu, since I work in the industry so long, right? I'm one of the first. I'm sure there's a bunch on the internet. I haven't met them yet, right? Where I've consciously changed the narrative, the mythological narrative. It's not following what DC and Marvel and you know DreamWorks and all the even George is following. Basically, Matsu doesn't have a physical nemesis. And it doesn't have war. War. It does have war, but it's in its history. It cannot happen in the current story that I'm telling. That twists the story plot like crazy. And then that monster creature thing comes in really playful because a creature is a monster. A monster is a creature, and a creature is a monster. So. So there is a nemesis. It's just not like, you know, as Godzilla or Darth Vader.
Now I want to switch gears and talk about NFTs. So would you consider yourself to be at the pro level stage or at like the intermediate? Like what level are you at in terms of like NFTs and Web3?
I kind of see it different because I kind of come from the traditional realm of Lucasfilm and stuff like that. So I really see NFTs, at least in my life right now. I'm open to new avenues and new innovations, but right now I really see it as the most incredible merch table that has ever come to an artist. And the focus, a lot of the FunkyIPuppets are really focusing on now is filling the theater. Not doing all these innovative things, just going back to the base model of the great musicians that we've all loved. They just shared their song. They didn't try to sell nothing, you know, they just shared their song and did their work, right? They hit a lot of people with it.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting.
Going back to the roots, you know, go back to Bob Marley and, you know,
right.
Back to them all. They didn't do anything but make people dance and sing. And that's at the heart of the FunkyIPuppets, in the heart of me. That's, you know, like our latest song is the FunkyIPuppets. To be a FunkyIPuppet, you love to dance and sing and you make art out of everything.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. Now tell us about the Cryptogamees. What are those?
So Cryptogamy came out, you know, just projects of exploring what can be done, and always been, once again, a fan of the creators of Pokemon more than the actual product, you know, like fans, how they became millionaires off this crazy, cool, imaginative idea, right? And so the Cryptogamy are basically what I do on Twitch. One of my how I got partnered on Twitch and how I became very successful on Twitch is I've always been this way, really innovative, partly because my story I told you, my adversity with my father and stuff. I just get really entrepreneurial. So on Twitch, I went in this guy's stream once, and he was like, hold on a minute, hold on, IPaintCreatures, I want to draw you. I'm like, you want to draw me? What are you gonna do, a portrait or whatever? And no, he showed me this book, and he's like, like those old bubblegum cards, I'm just collecting streamers. So I draw a little cartoon card, right? And I just like look at it, I'm like, dude, can I steal that? That's what I do, man. If I did that in my stream, because I do poems, and that's where the haikus come in. And I'm like, I'm gonna start drawing every person who comes in my stream in a creature book. Ask them 3 mythological story questions and draw them. And so that's why I started doing it. And to this date, I'm up to volume, I think 26, and I've done 2,500 creatures of people that just randomly come into my stream. So when it comes to NFTs, this is already a collection that sits on my shelf. They're in these little sketchbooks that I have. These little sketchbooks right here. This is a creature Peter right here. This is actually volume 1.
Okay.
So see, I did all these creatures. So I ask you basically, what is your superpower, right? And I make it elemental, but it's also industrial elemental. So you could say ice cream, hip hop, computer, internet. You could say NFTs, what makes you want to live, right? And then male, female. And then last question is what animals you identify with. And so you say alligator, elephant, and that's where the fantastical creatures come from, right?
Wow.
So then these basically translated right into the Cryptogamees. And so basically what I do is I take these and I refine them digitally. Right? And then the Matsu, and that's where the FunkyIPuppets came in, right? Because I'm teaching them to do the Matsu, because Matsu, I didn't know what it means, still don't know really what it is. I found out its real roots. It's a Chinese goddess, a mythological sea goddess that saves people from drowning. Right. And so that has some relevance to the story. But when I was on Twitch, I had a student that was like, what is that Matsu? I'm a fan, but I've never seen the creature. Tell me about it. And I was like, and he was doing a haiku lesson, which was all about acronyms. So I was like, take it and make an acronym. Tell me what it is. And he came back and he typed in my chat and he said, it means making art together, supporting unity. And I fell off my chair. I was like, you got to be kidding. And so one thing I'm very conscious of, I'm not very much of a religious person. I think religion happens because you come up with some concept and you get so attached with it that you're trying to hammer it on everyone else, right? And so I took that with total blessings because he came up with it. And so I've incorporated that into what we're doing, the IPC University and the FunkyIPuppets. And to me, it's the new hip hop, the new slam movement, making art together, supporting unity, because it's so literal. You can see someone making something, right? You can't get confused. And you can see if they're making it together, right? And then you can see them making art together, right? And then I define art as something that doesn't exist in this world today. That's how I define art. So if you're making it together, you got to make something. I mean, it can be inspired by things, but make something that hasn't arrived here. It can be recognizable of things, but something that you as the togetherness can make that no one else can make. Right. And the supporting unity has always been the nail in my whole life, right? Making a living as an artist, let alone as just even a spoken poet. Because poetry to me was the first occupation, and it's not even in the want ads. Yeah, right. And people always argue, no, prostitution was. I'm like, they needed words. That business transaction, they needed words. They needed that poet to sit there and go, here's these words you can use, right? So you can do that transaction. Right? So Cryptogamy are basically a collection, and right now we're not going to leak a lot of it. We're up to a lot of mischief right now as the FunkyIPuppets after winning our our superstar awards. So we're going to dive in head first in the next few months, and you're going to see like IPC around the FunkyIPuppet camp. There's a term that says, they always say the IPC way. So you're going to see how IPC like brings out, because going back to NFTs, I see it as the most amazing merch table. And I think you really can't do any artistry in it unless you can fill the seats.
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and have some history behind you and have some hype, that hype where people want your art because it's doing monumental things, right? And then the biggest involvement I love about it in this past year, what that would bring me up to pro level, is the culture of it, the art of talking about it, the integration of art and artists,
Mm-hmm.
not artists, like human beings that know how to do things. Like, this metaverse is not going to survive unless they get that.
Mm-hmm.
Artists need to be at the heart of what they're doing. And Facebook already shown. Like, I have a couple of friends, dude, I got paid. You should see this check, dude. And they had me just do these little looping animations or 3D model this. I'm like, all my old Lucas friends, right? A lot of them are like, at that. So they're like, you should get in. I'm like, no, man, I'm up to something. It's going back to that what I told you, right? The storytellers at the poets at the center of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to the poet,
Yeah, yeah.
My Angela's up there yelling at me right now. Go IPC, go, right?
Yeah, that's really, really cool. Now I want to get into the performance that happened as of recently, because me and my father was in the Black Verse room in Clubhouse, and we've watched and heard you and the FunkyIPuppets perform, which was a great performance. It would be really cool if you did like not only poetry, but also combining music and poetry with the FunkyIPuppets, the art of it. So have you thought about like combining those three things?
That's been there since day one. It's the reason we don't do it is because of the technology. Like, our latest pieces, I started playing with the technology because Clubhouse has improved, and even Zoom, will fall out every once in a while too. So it's a lot of the technology. Because see, the original vision is, that's why we're the FunkyIPuppets. We kind of got stuck a little bit in between. We have I think it's going to take many of them, right? But we have the first puppet maker, and she's amazing the way she works with me. So yeah, and then we just had auditions the other night, and we've been doing this FunkyIPuppet thing in kind of like versions, like software, right? So we're like moving into 3.0, and 3.0 kind of requires you to sing and rap and scat and bring more performance to it. And then out of the Black Verse thing, I just got tons of inspiration. And so, like, first of all, what we've done is a full revamp on how we represent ourselves. First of all, we're basically representing ourselves as a content creating multimedia content creation troupe. Because we make comics, we're going to make feature films, we make limited series television shows, we can do Broadway, we can do a hip hop club, we can do a stadium, and that's the whole thing. Like, I don't know if you know the breadth of the FunkyIPuppets right now, but there are superstars that are on there with their singing voices. They're like ridiculous. So like, and then do you know Treasure?
Treasure Notes?
Treasure, she's into the NFT space. I forget what her last name she goes by, but she just joined the FunkyIPuppets, and she's an example of what's starting to happen, because she raps, she does amazing cartoon voices, and she sings. So like the latest practices we just came from in the last 3 days, basically we took Don't Get Mad at the Monster, my children's book, and now it's a blues song.
Wow.
So I sing like, don't get mad at the monster, and then they're both soul singers, so they come back with the lines, so we take it to the church. And then the musicians all lined up. We've had Charles Sy from New York City. He's been there since the beginning. He's still hanging tough with us. And we have a professional percussionist, and Charles and Gary Fritz. They're from New York City, and they are the real deal. They're the old school funk jazz players. The Black musicians. They're like the real deal. They're like what hip hop sampled. Wow. Like Gary did a track for us, right? And he's a percussionist, and I thought it was loops. samples, and he recorded it live on live kungas.
Wow.
Yeah. So those guys are there. And then I'm a big mogul in Chico, and the musicians here are so the whole thing is like the Kakapa DJs, they bring what in the story of Matsu, which is called hip coup and hop high, and to me that's the new hip hop. And then just this last week we've been really realizing, because we started a kids program.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're going to make it so a kid could see us and go, I want to be a Funky Eye Puppet. And then we're going to have a program so they could come be a voice actor and be one of the characters. Right. And then so that made me thinking about the Funky Eye Puppets, I think is definitely working in the tradition of Russell Simmons, you know, and the beginning of hip hop. Like, it's giving kids, you know, like, you know, are you black, you white, you Asian? No, I'm a Funky Eye Puppet.
Right.
Like, what makes you funky? I love to dance and sing, and I'm a content creator, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I make NFTs, right?
Right.
Right. So, I mean, because, you know, the other side of me is I'm an art educator. So the biggest mission of the Funky Eye Puppet is for this thing to continue long after I'm gone. That's partly why it's puppets too.
Wow, that's really, really amazing.
And it's modeled after the Gorillas, you know, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, they're currently doing a world tour, and you don't need to know who's in the band.
Right.
Yeah. And I see that's where NFTs, metaverse, that's where it's all going. Give it to the kids.
Right.
And that's a challenge right now, because I just ended 2 semesters of teaching at the community college. And I don't really want to go back. It was very depressing. Like, kids at that age, they already giving up. They're looking at the cell phone like it's a burden.
Right.
And they hate NFTs, and they hate metaverses. I taught an audio production class, and I took them, they did 2 projects, NFT one and a metaverse, all around sound production. And none of them had fun, really. They're all just at their grade. And then talking to the dean in the chair and all that gets crazy too. They all downplayed the shit too. None of these kids are going to be anything. And then all I do is reflect on me. Man, someone would have told me that, dude, I wouldn't be where I am.
Right.
I'm better had the street dudes tell me, no, go for it.
Right.
Like, live your life, keep drawing, dude.
Right.
Even though you're drawing that creature, you keep drawing it. One day you will paint creatures.
Yeah, right, exactly. Now I want to get into, in terms of security, because I know people talk about, crypto, especially with the security of it. Now, what are some of the steps that you took in terms of maintaining security of the Funky Eye Puppets and its assets?
I'm kind of crazy on that level, and I'm just a highly spiritual person, and I really believe in, like, kind of purpose, and I believe all the beings. I think we got to get out of thinking of so much, right? And think from, right? And when you think from, you kind of let go of the whys and the whats, and you more get more in your heart with love, and it's more the who's showing up. Right, because I've had some challenges. Like, I have these voice actors, you know, we're all amazing artists and creators. And I learned that Lucasfilm, like, one of the requirements to work at Lucasfilm is work on yourself. Because you work with the most craziest people, and some of those people at Lucasfilm, they're cold as ice. They're geniuses. They're inside their head. They don't have time to talk about how you don't feel good around this person or that person. They just know they're kind of mechanical. It's weird. It's like Star Wars there. Some of them are bots, but they're amazing bots. That, CPU is pretty amazing what you can do, right? So I think when it comes to security, I think it comes to a time where I think, at least, and I learned a lot of this, getting in the communities on Clubhouse and some of the deep dialogues that happened in some of those showcases and rooms where they were talking about, we have a chance to look at our humanity again.
Right.
and not follow money and like not go, you're going to rip me off and get all these thoughts clouded in the mix, and more think from, create so you can't rip each other off. And that's the
Right.
first thing I saw with the smart contracts. And so I've started to somewhat do that, like, because I started the scenario of having Kalechi, right, who I met on Clubhouse, and he has a voice that sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bob Marley. I mean, like I heard this guy's voice. I'm like, man, if I put that in cartoon, that's the next Shrek. This guy is like, and he's into hip hop, and he's black, and man, and he's European. I'm like, and I became his friend. But then, there's sometimes we have disagreements, and we're on an audio app. It gets dangerous, like, because we're not in person, right? You can say one thing and trigger all these things. And then this replay is a whole nother psychological relationship. If you replay stuff, I learned that from Twitch, like, don't reread the chat, because when a troll says something, you can elevate it. You keep reading and reading deeper and then getting harder, and you take it more personal. And so I thought about Kalechi. If we have a falling out, right? We've done art together. Yeah, IPC is an idea guy and everything. Yeah, but automatically he's in his next work, there's going to be some of my concepts showing up.
Right.
And am I a lawyer? No. Am I going to go over to Europe and bring some lawyers and spend all the time doing that? No. So I got to get more on the level of creating consciously, and also what I believe is needed in art since the digital arts. Be original. Do something no one has ever done and reach so far that you don't even know how you did it. Right. So they can't steal it. They can steal the concept, but they can't steal the context.
Right.
Just like right now, I'm doing all these art fairs, right? And I'm starting to paint Matsu, which is a wild world. I mean, because it's a sci-fi fantasy world, right? And I'm not going to do what Lucasfilm did. I'm not going to go look at real Earth landscapes and, use all these different artists to do it. No, I'm going to do it just like I'm a painter. I'm going to open that canvas, feel inspired, and just visualize it, think from, just start seeing it and painting it. So in the last 2 months, I've been doing these paintings, and then I've been getting these great opportunities to do local art fairs, right? Because people see my art and they're like, dude, you need to get in the show. And then I've been learning the kind of business of it, and it's helping, fund the FunkyIPuppets and everything, and the NFTs, because I talk to NFTs on the street, which is even more expansive than on the internet, right? Person to person. And then, so basically what's been happening, Asia, is these people come up, like a couple came up the other night, bought 5 of these paintings. Wow. And it's just quantum leaps inside myself, because you got to understand, Asia, I don't know enough about you and your art, but like, that's 4 a.m. going, oh, I never painted that before. I wonder, well, you got the paints here and you don't got to wake up tomorrow. I just start painting, and I may stay up till the sunrise, and there's this painting, I'm looking at it, and I have confidence because I have been an artist professionally most of my life. So I follow all the fundamentals like light and, composition. So I'm not just putting stuff on the thing, I'm following them. So I got a light source, and, there are cool things, but then, as artists, you're critical, right? You're like, oh, I messed that whole part up. And so those are the paintings. So sometimes I don't even finish them, and I'll do all this mixed media, but I'm also a professional artist. I'm really conscious that I'm using mediums that you can sell to people, right? Won't fade, right? And so I do that, and then I put it out, and this couple comes up, and they just like looking, and they're like, how much for that one? And I play this game because I don't know. I'm like, inside myself, I don't know the value of that. I know the value because I'm painting it, but I know a lot, you come from fear, right? I know a lot of people buy stuff because they recognize it, not this thing, it's cool and everything, but how are they going to justify that over their food on the table? Right. Especially in a college town. I don't know what these people are doing. Right. And so I go, make me an offer. And a lot of the ones, that are genuine, they're like, I can't do that because I'm going to say something stupid. Like, you have time in this. You obviously, I love your stuff. So, and so I said, oh, $100. She was like, I don't know. But then she looks at her partner and she's like, but this guy, we're not going to find him again. This guy. So I'm learning, right? I didn't ask him. I want to learn more to ask him, what are you getting these for? Like, are you moving to a new house? Are you giving them to friends? What are you doing? But anyway, they're like, okay, check it out. We just need a moment and we're going to go to the bank and we'll come back. And the girl looked at me right now and she goes, just let you know, we're going to buy something. And maybe not only one thing. And so they came back and they're like shopping the whole thing. And they all of a sudden they start gathering all these paintings, and I'm helping other customers, but I'm looking at them and they're gathering every single one of these scapes. And I'm just like, two things, right? When you're asked to answer your question, right? These are all Matsu. Okay, I go and I make it mainstream. They have that original painting. That thing's gonna talk about NFTs. It's a real NFT, right?
Right.
And that thing's gonna be worth like, dude, they can go on eBay and go, I got the original concept painting of what you saw in that television show or in that film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so you know, so it's just this whole evolution that happens. So I don't know if I'm boldly answering or, you know, because I really don't think about a lot of things. I just kind of trust my spoken poet. So I'm just telling you, yeah, I think I just really my gut, you know, especially how my father lived, and, you know, kind of telling you that background, and, you know, what I didn't tell you is my father basically never made a living off IKEA.
Mm.
And it might have been in the internment camp, but that's why I'm also telling you this story of the selling those paintings. Because a lot of my, you know, if I were my movie, right, my main character's conflict in life or ambition or whatever I need to figure out is the worth of, you know, going back to samurai heritage, that my art is worth, you know, can feed me and beyond.
Right.
So when it comes to copyright and all that, you know, I kind of, you know, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I judge a lot of people on the internet now by just putting that Matsu moniker right in front of their name. Are they making art with me? And are we supporting unity? And the supporting unity as an artist is first of all the money, and not specifically the money, but more looking at for us, me and Asia, to make Star Wars, right? You can't be struggling and I can't be struggling. You got to be at a level that only you can get at, right? But I could be more aware of it, where you can function full creativity without, you know, the noise, what I like to call the industrial noise, you know, right? Like, I shouldn't be doing this, or I'm not good, you know, the lack, limitation, and fear that gets in our head.
Right.
And I think NFTs are here to do that. Like my latest project with the FunkyIPuppets, right, we're gonna do this whole skit that is a comedy skit, and it's all about what is an NFT. All the creatures are gonna come up with their own name and their own story behind it and why it's called that. And, yeah.
Yeah, that seems.
And then our last, so the copyright and NFT, this will answer that. Our last move, and this is kind of previewing our next leaps in what we're doing. And just to also let you know, this past week, the mainstream media has started knocking on my door. So
wow.
Yeah, so it's starting to really happen. So what we have been asked to do, and we were working on right before this meeting in Clubhouse, is do a pilot pitch. So we have to submit scripts, and it's not really telling people who the companies are, right? But they're interested in metaverse entertainment. And they are companies that control the other entertainment, all the television and networks like that. And I think a lot why they're moving is because of Facebook. Because they're like, wait a minute, we have that whole market. And you're a social media software company, and you're coming into it, you know, and I think they believe there's room. I don't think they're competing, but they're like, we better position ourselves. And that's why it was just exhilarating meeting, because the FunkyIPuppets fit them so perfect. It's ridiculous. Like the ideas I was giving him, he was just like, you got to be kidding. One concept I have for the FunkyIPuppet metaverse is story arcades.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. Now I want to get into in terms of platforms. So what are some of the platforms that you've used in terms of promoting NFTs or like selling NFTs?
Based on all the ones I mentioned to you, I have my YouTube channel, and I always do try to do really progressive content on there. And then, always in my write up is all the links to OpenSea and everything. And then, of course, Clubhouse, because that's where it all kind of began.
Mm-hmm.
And now the new Connect Club,
Mm-hmm.
right? And of course on Twitch. And I haven't been that successful on Twitch, and that's part of like what the strategy we're doing now. So
Mm-hmm.
we've changed the Funky Eye Puppet troupe to basically being a theater company, but being a digital virtual theater company. So how we're starting to program stuff is just like a normal theater company. So a normal theater company will have like 2 or 3 seasons during the year, right? And some of them will have a troupe, right, which is the in-house actors, and some of them play the administrators too and run the theater, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
they do like the Wiz and then maybe some Broadway play, right, as their 2 features for that season. And then they audition, right, either out of their troupe, and then they open it up for the public, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to do that. And so basically we'll do that. Where we're different is we're digital creators, right? Content creators. So
Right.
we will we worked on 2 pieces right now. One of them is the pilot for the mainstream media, right? Which I'll talk a little bit about that, which is basically why Matsu is so perfect for the metaverse, is because we have a bunch of places inside the story of Matsu that are already a metaverse, right? Like in the story. So like they could become real and live. And one of them is called Yokai Koikai Land. And Yokai Koikai Land was the original amusement park,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you ever thought about that? You ever asked that question yourself? Where did it start? Isn't crazy? Like, why did someone go, let's make this place where for a day, right, you can take your family, right, and be amused, right? And then look at
Right.
the definition of muse is enjoying the delight and joy of life,
Mm.
right? I was like, whoa, and that's what we're all about. And so that's one of our first ones. So with Yokai Koikai, right, we will come forward with a Broadway performance. So we could perform this thing just like the Gorillas with a full-on band and orchestra and DJs and live giant-sized puppets and everything. So we can do that, which will also be a Circus du Soleil type show, right, for Vegas. So we can do that. We also can take the music from it, and we can do a soul, funk, rhythm, and blues rock and roll band that can tour and feature all of our Funky Puppets in human as singers, right?
Mm.
We also will produce Amazon children's books of Yokai Koikai Land. We also will do social media comic strips and animated shorts that will play on YouTube and Vimeo and all the new platforms coming up, and Connect Club, right? We can have rooms in there. We're going to have rooms in there that actually release rooms that release all the different mediums. So we'll have a room that releases the comic strip. And this comic strip will be like a limited series. So it'll be out on social media, and they will all be interconnected. So that's another thing. The second project I work on, Lucas, he was interested in interactive storytelling. And so all using the web. And when I told these metaverse companies that and once again, it goes to the security again, right? I don't think they can rip it off. They can take all my concepts, all the names I give them, but they can't take me, because
Right.
I keep adding to it. Like they say something and they go, oh, we're building this platform over here. And I go, okay, I got something for you over there too.
Right.
This guy, he's like, I was reading your bio and it says you have these degrees in education and arts. Are you doing something with that? And then I just unveiled everything. He's like, we got a whole division, dude. Will you come be one of the teachers? I'm like, I'm there.
Right.
Right. And that's a copyright thing, the security, right? Because they need me. They can't like, and they see the thinking from, right? Because I'll go in there and teach their teachers. So when I'm gone or I'm unavailable, it goes on.
Right.
Because my focus as an art educator is not the salary.
Mhm.
It's to do the mission. Like, education's fun, man. But
Right.
the way it's become these days, though, man, that's where the monsters are coming from, right?
Hmm.
Like the kids didn't want to know. Like I taught animation class and they didn't want to know where they could go after this.
Right.
This one artist does this amazing animation. And she says, and she right to my face, NFTs suck. I'm like, why do you feel that way? She's like, they're stupid. I go, what stupid? Why? It's just the big companies doing it again. I'm like, no, it's for you. You don't gotta go to work. Those animations, all these animations are doing not that good. So that's why the FunkyIPuppets are on the mission, right? And it gets sad sometimes that's what you guys don't see behind the gates, Sometimes people just won't choose to be a FunkyIPuppet, right?
Hmm.
I think it's God-given right that you can sing. Maybe not to sing and perform for millions of people, but you can sing. And sing brings joy. Like and right. And that affects politics, business, everything if you feel happy.
Right. Right.
Every single person just sing a little bit each day. Stop singing everyone else's song. Sing your song,
Right.
Even if it's stupid. Probably isn't though.
Yeah, exactly. But I also want to ask this question too. Ever thought about also like having FunkyIPuppets merch, like clothing, like a clothing line?
That's all there because I mean, just me being pretty much been a hip hop mogul my whole life, because I've been that multidisciplinary artist. I always go in social circles and they're always calling me out, man, we need albums, we need this over here, we need this, we need to do this. So, I actually ran a hip hop. I wasn't the main owner, but I was pretty much the acquisition guy, and I did a lot of the illustration. And it was a company called the Hip Hop Closet. So
Wow.
I've been involved with, and actually, so you tapped into one of our next collectibles is called Tatsuables. Tattoos, like everyone thinks I draw dragons, right? Because that's the norm, right? But I draw tattoos because that's the Japanese water serpent. And the Japanese water serpent actually means more positive information than the dragon. Dragon basically in European language means demon. So
Wow.
so it's top doables. Actually, we're going to try something really interesting where we're definitely going to get into the wearable space, right? The digital for the metaverse, but we're also going to make the physical item available. So like right now I'm painting jackets and Vans shoes and hats. My fantastical tattoos on them. And tattoos are basically the dragons or whatever you see on like Chinese restaurants and scrolls. And so people love that. Like when I do the art fair, that's how I make a lot of my living right now. It's just painting tattoos. People buy them like crazy. Like, I give them deals because I paint pretty fast. So. But so I don't know, how do you see that? I like to ask you, how do you see that? Because that's a kind of a weird thing. I mean, like the media people were okay with it because I was wondering, I wanted to at least run it by them, right? Because like we're gonna make this movie, right? And
Right.
Got this painting for $100 and he got it on his wall. Like that's like old school. That's like major. That's like right. He could stop all kinds of shit, right? Because he wants, right?
Yeah, I think the idea is really, really cool. Like, not only having wearables, but also like, how you're actually painting on clothing, with the creatures and, getting into films and skits. So that's really, really cool. I think that's a really awesome thing that you guys are doing.
And then they also get a certificate of the birth of the Tatsu. And then this is where we bring them along, right? If they keep buying the NFTs that are in that collection, right? They eventually will lead to eventually even being in the movie. Because they raised that tattoo. So at least, on the credits, they were the tattoo keeper.
Wow, that'd be really, really cool.
So they get a certificate. And then also to answer your past questions, that's where all the multimedia content comes in. Unlockable will be a song, a Funky Eye Puppet song. Unlockable will be a Funky Eye Puppet skit about that creature and its background and who it is and how it fits in the Matsu universe. So they not only just have the jacket, they have the whole legacy, which is backwards engineering, right? To like Mickey Mouse. Like everyone has Mickey Mouse now, but now that's the way. So that's another way I answer your security question. I think artists really need to listen to artists like me because I'm backwards engineering things.
Right.
Like get your worth, cement it. Don't sit there and play with lawyers and all this other stuff. Like just do the art. Just, you know, tell the world through all these mediums, it's yours and you value it. Because I think that if you really look at hip hop and even rock and roll, right, I think a lot of artists, they screwed it up as much as the people ripping them off did. You know, they gave it away. They didn't, you know, like even me. That's why I was telling you that story about those paintings. Like when they're going, how much? I'm sitting there inside myself and I'm just like frozen. I'm like, I painted that at 4 a.m. I don't even know if it's bad. I don't even know it's that good. It's kind of cool looking. I like looking at it, but I don't know, you know, and then you start getting that figure out, right? Someone's going to see that and then they're not going to buy anything ever again.
Right.
But we forget like the haters, right? Make more sales.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Last but not least, where can people find you on social media and how can people support you and the Funky Eye Puppets?
Support us at the Funky Eye Puppets right now is just become a fan. Come along for the journey, like geek out on us, like you know, find where you, because the Funky Eye Puppets are basically, you know, I think we were talking to your father about it, right? We're basically Calvin and Hobbes / Boondock / Fat Albert / Star Wars / you know, everything that you loved as a kid, everything that, you know, made you smile and still makes you smile and made you goofy and you know, and showed you that, like, you know, weird things or strange things aren't weird. They're us, you know, and best way you can support us. So I have my YouTube channel. We're working on all the stuff. And like I said, with like Yokai Koikai, we're going to start doing stuff where it's a full release, just like a major music artist, right? So you're going to see us on our TikTok, you're going to see us on our YouTube, and it's all going to be story driven. So the best way you can support us is come on there and geek out, follow the story, follow the Easter eggs, go, why is that guy like that? You know, ask the questions, go, whoa, he says he doesn't paint dragons. What is a tatsu? You know, and why does everyone like dragons? First of all, if it's a demon, you know, even religious folks, they come and buy a dragon from me and I don't talk to them about it. I just sit there and go, you're buying a demon. Are you okay with that? You know? And yeah, so the first place they could probably go is youtube.com/c / IPaintCreatures, and where you can help me on that is I'm ready to get monetized. I'm really close on there, and but I designed that channel because I'm not worried about it, because I'm really thinking from I understand where the Funky Eye Puppets are going to go, and sites like my YouTube is going to go to the roof as soon as they fall in love with raw and glitch and funk and vibrato and, you know, and Jacopo and Scribe and all the characters. And I designed these characters, you know, all from the root of what saved my life, from Charlie Brown and Snoopy to, you know, Darth Vader and Yoda to, I mean, I put everything in it. And like I said, if you watch this interview, I'm not a fan of the Yoda. I'm a fan of the dude who drew it, man. And that's also the mission of the Funky Eye Puppets, is to leave this planet. If you creative, you strange, but you cannot stop doing that, whatever you think is strange and creative, and you do it like you would do without getting paid, and you would stay up late and you'll drive all your family and friends nuts, man, come talk to us. You know, that's like, so we're going to tell you you're a Funky Eye Puppet and you need to like get together with either us or your friends and bug them, you know, challenge them, man. Stop doing that. Stop thinking you got to get a job. If that's what in your heart, that's what you don't want to do, don't do it.
Right.
You know, but don't forget, you still need a job. So make your job.
Right.
And that's what NFTs are here for. And, you know, that's what metaverse is here. And then this is what Asia's doing. So, you know, you want to support us, support her. you know. For this, man, like this is like, this is a lot of work and a lot of passion, dedication, and she is phenomenal. You are phenomenal.
Thank you.
That email stuff was like, wow. I think Quincy met his match. I was like, whoa. I was like, this is administrative. Yeah, she's very professional. So if you got something to say, connect with Asia and support us. Yeah, just we're on Instagram as the FunkyIPuppets, and I can give Asia our direct me link, which is like our link tree and has everything on it. But don't worry about the links. You will see us. We're going to start making a lot of noise. Promotion, if I could do this, right, is a 90-page book. And I crowdsourced it on Twitch. I made $8,000 in 8 days. And I didn't have anything to show. I just went on there with my mouth and told them I need to do this thing. And it's basically a 90-page book. And there's bad news. I'm almost done with all of the physical copies. They're all over the world. They're in Australia, they're in Switzerland, they're in Iceland, they're in Antarctica, they're in Hawaii. They're all over the world. And it is basically a primer for the story of the Matsu and the FunkyIPuppets.
Wow, that's really, really cool.
I can announce on here on our direct me, it will be on there too. We just announced Symphony 2. So we're crowdsourced funding for Symphony 2 now. And Symphony 2 is going to fully feature the FunkyIPuppets.
Wow, that's really, really cool.
So it has the first graphic novel of Matsu in it. Right there. Taiko's Tale, it's a water goblin story.
Cool.
And, we will start to perform this one too, Taiko's Tale. And then I guess the last thing we'll show on here is basically, here's all the people I work in the tradition of. And I woke up one night and looked at my sketchbook and I had drawn all these sketches. And I was like, whoa, a page needs to go in the book. So I wrote a tribute to him. And so here's Mr. Joseph Campbell. He was the world-renowned mythologist who inspired George Lucas to make Star Wars. This is Shigeru Mizuki. He was a master yokaiologist and the grandfather of manga. And he lost him in 2018. Ironic, in World War II, he lost his left arm. So that connects to my story, right? Charles Schultz, right? Peanuts. This is Akira Kurosawa, the greatest Japanese filmmakers and George Lucas's favorite filmmaker. And his claim to fame is he's the first filmmaker that pointed his film camera directly at the sun. Shel Silverstein, Dr. Seuss, and Morris Sendak, Where the Wild Things Are. And,
wow.
Really great.
Yeah, this is really, really fun. Well, thank you so much, IPC, for jumping onto the show. What you're doing is absolutely incredible. You're multi-talented. You're mad talented. I love the FunkyIPuppets. I love what you guys are doing. Congratulations on how far it's going. You definitely have my full support. My dad is in full support as well. So thank you so much for being.
Doors open if you guys want to come be a FunkyIPuppet. Even for a cameo to do some collaboration,
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Well, thank you.
I can see you can sing. I see it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much.
I can see you love to dance. I bet you love to dance.
Yeah, I'm not a big dancer.
You gotta get rid of that, right? Isn't that what we came to this world to do? But we're all shy now. We're all like, what? What we do, man.
Right, exactly. Yeah, well, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to click the bell for notifications. Also follow me on my social media platforms and visit my website, asiaticbird.com, and be on the lookout for more interviews involving Web3, NFTs, crypto, and the metaverse.